in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world.
Hello there, many thanks for joining us once again here on Razep Africa. Here, as you know, we give you updates across Africa, telling you what you need to know to get you abreast and to make informed decisions around everything you need, the potentials in this beautiful continent. Although today we'll be discussing something very important, childhood cancer. For some of you who may not know, just a couple of days ago, we celebrated the World Day, Childhood Cancer Day, a day set aside to, all those words and things around cancer that you may not understand. It was a day to set the record straight, those mysteries and mystics that some people believe in. It's a day to also address those very important things around the survivors, what you need to know to be a caregiver, and the attention for government across the world to take serious attention to these cancers that are affecting children. We'll get into everything in a bit, but as you know, we'll start with the African news updates today. We'll start that immediately. We'll begin in Addis Ababa, where African Union leaders at a two-day summit have adopted a landmark resolution describing slavery, deportation, and colonialism as genocide and crimes against the people of Africa. The resolution passed during the gathering of heads of state recognizes colonization as a crime against humanity and signals a renewed push for historical justice on the global stage. The chairman, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, also used the platform to call for an end to what he described as the extermination of the Palestinian people, expressing the solidarity with Palestine. Member states agreed to designate November 30th as the African Day, tribute to African martyrs and victims of the transatlantic slave trade, colonization, and apartheid, adding that they would work collectively to seek international recognition of the resolution. Meanwhile, in Beijing, China has announced it will scrap tariffs on imports from 53 African countries starting May 1st, in a move aimed at boosting trade relations across the continent. Chinese President Xi Jinping made the announcement through state media, confirming that only Eswatini is excluded due to its diplomatic ties with Taiwan. China-Africa trade reached $222 billion in early 2025, and the expansion of zero-tariff access builds on an earlier policy that covered 33 African nations. The move comes as several African countries reassess trade partnerships globally, particularly amid shifting tariffs policies from the United States. Turning to West Africa, a planned US-funded hepatitis B vaccine trial involving newborns in Guinea-Bissau has been halted following strong criticism from the World Health Organization. The study had proposed giving one group of babies the vaccine at birth while delaying the dose for another group until 6 weeks of age, raising ethical concerns. The WHO described the proposal as unethical, arguing that withholding a proven life-saving birth dose vaccine exposes newborn to potential irreversible harm. With more than 12% of Guinea-Bissau's adult population living with chronic hepatitis B, public outrage prompted the government to suspend the trial, insisting that its citizens are not subject for experimentation. Now let's go further south. South Africa has launched a sweeping 10-year vaccine campaign targeting nearly 20 million cattle in response to a fast-spreading outbreak of foot and mouth disease. The highly contagious virus, which affected cattle, sheep, and goats, have spread to 8 of the country's 9 provinces, placing immense pressure on farmers and export markets. Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen says the 4-phase plan aims to reduce outbreaks by more than 70% within a year in high-risk provinces. Vaccines will be sourced from Argentina, Turkey, and Botswana, while local production is being expanded. China has already suspended beef imports from South Africa over the outbreak, intensifying economic concerns. And finally, back in Nigeria, thousands of fishermen gathered in Kebbi State as the historic Argungu International Fishing Festival returned after years of suspension due to insecurity and infrastructure challenges. President Bola Tinubu joined spectators at the Matanfada River, a UNESCO heritage site, as competitors used traditional fishing methods to catch the largest fish. This year's winner landed a 59-kilogram croaker, earning a cash prize, while the festival also featured cultural displays, wrestling, and music. First held in 1934 to mark peace between the Sokoto Caliphate and the Argungu Emirate, the event is widely seen as a symbol of unity, though local leaders admit insecurity still deters participation. That's it for the African News Update this morning. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss Childhood Cancer Day, what you need to know to understand what a lot of people are facing and how you too can contribute and maybe even pressure government to do what is needful to make sure we have survivors in this continent and in our country. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Welcome back. Now, every year on February 15th, the world marks Childhood Cancer Day, a day that reminds us of cancer and what it does not only to adults but to children. Thousands of children across Nigeria and Africa are battling cancers like leukemia, lymphoma, and kidney tumors. Yet, while survival rates in developed countries exceed 80%, many children in low-income countries do not get diagnosed in time or cannot afford treatment. This year's global theme, Better Survival is Achievable Through Their Hands, calls attention to the urgent need for trained health workers, better systems, and equitable access to care. And today on the show, I'm joined by Dr. Nwala Gabriel, consultant and pediatrician, Abuja Clinics, Maitama. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Now, we are going to examine the realities of childhood cancers in Nigeria, the myths, the gaps, and the solutions. Again, I thank you for being part of this and the work that you do. I know there was a campaign over the weekend. This 15th was yesterday. And I know there was a campaign. Just let's start the conversation with what the campaign was about and how impactful you think it was.
Okay, basically the essence of raising this campaign or the awareness for childhood cancers, first and foremostly is for people to be aware that not every illness is malaria, not every illness is typhoid. There are some other conditions you find in children, like childhood cancers, that we should be aware of. So there are things you should look out for in your kid, or maybe people that are related to you. Once a child has any illness that defies normal basic treatment, person loses weight, fever fails to break and all that, one should know that there might be other things aside from the common conditions we know around. So childhood cancer awareness day one is for us, or for people out there, to know that there is something known as cancer. It's not reserved for people in developed countries. We can still have it right here in our local setting. That's one. Then secondly, the need for everybody's hand to be on deck to support families that are fighting this problem. Families with children that have childhood cancers need all our support. It's not something for you to stigmatize them or avoid associations with them. You should actually support
Is
them.
that still a thing in Africa where
in Africa,
you stigmatize? I mean, I know HIV was, we had to do a lot of campaign around the stigmatization. I know several other, but cancer?
So there are children you might see that are not adding weight and all that, despite all they are eating. One will be like, this child, please don't go and associate with such children, thinking that it's something that is contagious. It will not spread by
by contact.
Wow. Although there is what we call barrier nursing and all that, because their immunity is low, they can easily pick infections and all that. But we should support such families, encourage them. It's not an easy battle, if you ask me. So we should.
Okay, we will get back to what support looks like, especially for families that have children suffering childhood cancers. But first of all, what is significantly different between childhood cancers and adult cancers?
Okay, so there are three common cancers we find in children. One is what we call leukemia, that's blood cancer. There are cells in the body. The blood has three basic cells: the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets. The red blood cells are the ones that carry oxygen from the lungs to the tissues. The white blood cells are the ones that help to fight infection. And most times in childhood cancer, you find that the white blood cells, grow abnormally. The number of normal white blood cells should be between 4 and 11,000. So you can find as much as 100,000 white blood cells in children with, leukemia. And the number doesn't really translate to efficacy. Now, you have functionally inept white blood cells all over the place that cannot fight any infection. So the numbers are there causing, viscous flow, in the blood and all that, which on its own, instead of helping the child, will actually cause more problems for the child, because infections can easily come in because the white blood cells are not functionally able to, tackle this infection. So that's the commonest childhood cancer that
that's what
make up
leukemia,
leukemia, 1/3 of the childhood cancers. Then the second one is brain tumors. It's in cancer of the brain, if you like. So there are different positions of these cancers depending on the age of the child. Infants will have what we call supratentorial. That's if there is a landmark that separates the upper and the lower part of the brain. So in infants, you find it more in the upper part. Between 1 year and adolescence, you find it below.
Below, right.
Then adolescents and above, you still find it above. So that's what we, find in brain tumors, which is the second most common cancers in children. Then the third one is what we call lymphomas. In the the background I was given regarding childhood cancers, renal tumors were, given as the thought. No.
Yes.
So lymphomas can actually originate from different parts of the body, including the kidneys.
Wow.
So when you have lymphomas, it's one of the things that can also, present with different symptoms depending on the location. For the kidneys, you might actually find a child that has an abdominal mass that, takes off from the flanks, either of the two flanks, and grows down. And that might affect the child's ability to, sieve out, unwanted materials from the blood as urine. So it might affect the urine flow. You might actually see blood in the urine and all that.
Wow.
So those are some of the, the three common tumors or cancers you find in children. So the presentation, at least for the lame people out there, you should realize that any sickness a child is having that doesn't respond to the normal common treatments, kindly take that child to the hospital for proper evaluation. So that if it's something like a childhood cancer, it could be picked early and the needful.
So what's the survival rate? I mean, we already have infrastructural problems. Our health sector is not. But what would you say the highest infrastructural deficit is when it comes to early detection, management, or treatment?
Okay, so I would want to take that from two perspectives. One is this International Childhood Cancer Day tries to narrow the gap, infrastructural gap between developed and developing countries regarding cancer. Now, if people know about childhood cancers and know how to detect it early, that will help, because early presentation and early commencement on the treatment regimen will help, in ensuring that the event-free survival is higher than what has been documented, in the environment. That's one way I want to look at it. Then the other way is, if we look at childhood cancers, the commonest cancer now, the figures I gave, as in the three common cancers, those are global, figures.
Okay.
But when you come to developing countries like Nigeria now, the common cancers we have here is more of lymphomas. Okay. And those lymphomas are treatable. There are drugs that once you give, okay, let me give a typical example. There's what we call bucket lymphoma.
So, say that again.
Bucket. It was named after the surgeon that first, described it.
Described it, right.
So bucket lymphoma has, more than 85% cure.
Oh, okay.
Now, once the diagnosis is made early and the child is placed on what we call comp therapy, they usually come out of it. So that's the good thing about some of the common childhood cancers we have here. Leukemia globally, the incidence is high. So there are also medications you give for, induction of remission, maintenance, and all that.
Right.
That's depending on whether it's a male or a female child, that can be given for 24 to 36 months. So once that is done, the survival rate, it's actually high when the diagnosis is made early and treatment commenced in good time. Now, the reality on ground is that with this awareness that it's ongoing, there are a lot of, synergy between centers that have facilities, that have medications, that have NGOs supporting cancer treatment, and those that don't. So by the time they come together and work together, and these there are a lot of works going on
Right.
across the globe. So there are people working on particular cancers and need data regarding which cancer do you have, what and what are the gaps you have in your facility. You have people that will fill in those gaps so that the survival rates of children with childhood cancer can be narrowed as much as possible to the barest minimum.
Absolutely.
So that's what is happening currently.
So how much does a late diagnosis contribute to mortality?
Okay, so when we talk about cancer, it means that there are some cells that are defying normal body regulatory systems. Now, there's a way a cell should grow. There is a limit to which that growth, should be allowed to, happen. But in a situation whereby the cells are just growing abnormally, growing out of shape, out of proportion, moving from where they should be to, another site in the body. So you actually find that growth using up body's resources. What the child should use for normal growth and development is channeled to this growth that is, bizarre.
Right.
So the more that growth happens, the more you now see the person, shrinking, the more the body will need more fuel
Right.
to actually supply the needs of these abnormally growing cells and all that. So if you don't bring such a child to the hospital early enough and this growth continues unabated, now you find a situation whereby it will, metastasize or, send some seedlings into some very vital, organs in the body that will now lead to the body's shutdown. So the earlier the diagnosis is made
done.
and treatment commenced, the better, so that it doesn't get to the point where, okay, for instance, now let's say there is a seedling sent to the lungs. You know that child won't be able to breathe well. So if the child is unable to sustain oxygen supply to the tissues, it's one step from the child going to the other side. So if it could be identified early and treatment commenced, that will help to ensure that the survival is better than what would have been the case if the presentation is late.
I mean, I don't know if you quite responded to the systemic gaps or infrastructures or personnel gaps that often sometimes hinder this early detection. In Nigeria, what are we facing? What are we dealing with when it comes to things that impede early detection?
Okay, so the personnel, I know there are a lot of hospitals out there, a lot of hospitals all over the place, but there are very few facilities that have skilled personnel that are able to have a very high index of suspicion. You can't keep a child on admission and the child is spiking, as in there is fever, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, you're still managing the child. So if you don't suspect something like blood cancer, for instance, leukemia, and do a peripheral blood film, that child will still be on admission and the condition will continue worsening until the child dies. So, but if such a child is in a facility where there are skilled personnel that will know that a child with fever, with all the treatments you've been offering, is not getting better, such skilled personnel should be able to think of other things. What could be responsible for this fever that is not breaking? And by the time they now start searching for other possible reasons why the fever is there, you find that they might be able to know that this child is having leukemia. Then induction of remission is commenced, and the abnormally growing cancer cells will be contained, and the child will have better event-free survival.
Right. I know how meat, because that's something that often impedes early detection and even treatment. How dangerous would you say traditional meats have affected knowledge and
So
treatment.
in a typical African setting, you can't wish that away. It's there. In fact, some of the things that can be baffling is that even the educated ones, some people that are well educated, might be so glued to their religious and cultural beliefs than even what has been impacted in school. So that's why this public awareness that we are doing today is very, very important.
Exactly.
The more people get to know that there is something called childhood cancer, and that childhood cancer is not a death sentence, especially in Nigeria, where most of the cancers are not even the ones that one will say doesn't have a cure. You know, if a child has bucket lymphoma, for instance, has a jaw tumor, with comp therapy, within 2 weeks of the treatment, commencing the treatment, as in the first cycle,
right.
you see that the jaw mass would have gone down.
Right.
Some can come with abdominal mass, a lymphoma in the abdomen. By the time you start the comp therapy or whichever therapy that the center is using and the tumor shrinks, that child goes, on with his or her life.
Right.
So, but when people are not aware of these conditions and the fact that there are treatments, they might resort to self-help. They might resort to herbs and maybe other things, that may not be effective.
Exactly, or have even gone through clinical trials. So, I mean, I've also had an opportunity to interview someone who owns an NGO around cancers, really, and he saw a child with, I think, how did you put it?
Bucket lymphoma.
Yeah,
Bucket lymphoma.
Bucket lymphoma, yes. And he approached them. They were in the market trying to get funding and all of that. And he approached them to say, okay, this is my office. Let me get your contact. Meet me here. And they refused to come. And someone just laughed and said, that is how they just want to use that opportunity to beg, to make money and beg. Is that something you face?
So that one
also?
is there. If you go to major markets in Abuja now, you see children being left in the sun, used as a platform to
beg,
get money. So there are people, it's just like a syndicate. There are people, the people you're seeing out there are not even the main people, because for the child to be allowed in that space, market space, some
an entire chain.
So some
have
people would have been spoken to
and all that.
The approvals, it might not be formal, it might be an informal approval for them to be allowed to go ahead with their hustle. Is given, and the proceeds from all those solicitations, some will still go back to where
approvals came from.
So it's a whole lot. And the more you leave these children in the sun for several hours, they may not eat, they may not even drink water. Abuja, how hot everywhere is. This child is sweating, doesn't get well hydrated.
Much fluid, right.
So the more the child doesn't get well hydrated, the more there might be some problems. There is what we call spontaneous, that's what we call tumor lysis syndrome. So the tumor can spontaneously, let me use a layman's term, dissolve, and that's, dissolution can actually lead to production of some very, very harmful, metabolites. Like the calcium level might come down, potassium level might go up, phosphate levels might go up. And the more these things are released into the system, the more it puts more work to the kidneys, and the kidneys might shut down.
Wow.
So hydration is one of the things you do to ensure that if it happens, it doesn't cause the child's demise.
Wow.
So just imagine a child out there in the sun, getting dehydrated, not getting well hydrated, and this kind of thing happens. You hear that the child suddenly, gave up, the ghost and all that, which is not very good.
There's still so much to discuss.
A lot.
There's still so much to discuss, especially back here in our country where we're faced with this kind of things. But we're going for a short break. When we come back from this short break, we'll still discuss the myths, we'll discuss success stories, if any. We would also discuss the role of media in ensuring that there's early detection and awareness, practical steps government can take immediately that will see that ripple effect and so much more. So stay with us, we'll be right back. This is Razep Africa. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
If you're just joining us, this is Razep Africa, where we've been discussing childhood cancers. Better survival is, of course, achievable. Like they say, childhood cancers is not a death sentence, but several myths impede the early detection, awareness that's necessary, and cultural beliefs have also been appointed. Now I have Dr. Nwala right here in the studio, and we've been discussing this. Thank you so much for staying.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So yesterday was the 15th of February, where again awareness was brought to this. What do you say the media can do in helping to establish this awareness? It's really important, because I see some instances like this. I know if I shudder as someone who is not necessarily in the health sector, I wonder how you feel when sometimes you see such children presented not to hospitals but to religious leaders for help instead. And because the religious leader does not want to show that he does not have powers to do it, instead of sending you right back to where you will get help, would attempt to help, further wasting time. How do you feel when this person just needs medical attention, and yet here they are running from pillar to post, all the wrong places?
I actually cringe. It's something, as a pediatrician, as a child advocate, we are the voices of these children who may not have the wherewithal to say what they want and to go for it. So, and that's why we need this platform to talk to even the religious leaders. Now, if Jesus healed all the sick people in the world at the time, I don't think we will still have
sick people today.
So if our Lord and Savior didn't have the power or didn't have the opportunity, let me put it like that, to heal everyone, especially there were those that didn't still believe in him. So it leaves us with that wisdom that as a religious, if somebody comes to you, if they bring a child to you that has been ill for a long time, and you've done your part, you've prayed, and you are not seeing any results, it's not out of place for you to reach out. I have a number of friends that are also, in the religious sect that reach out when they have issues like this. They say, okay, please, we have so and so. What do we do? And you advise them. There are members of your congregation that might be battling with cancers, and you've seen that the war is as if they are not winning.
Right.
Just reach out. We have a number of them that have had, lymphomas that were, treated, and they are fine. They are moving around. the good thing with the common cancers we have in this environment is that most of them largely are treatable. So if somebody's 5 year survival is improved by up to 85%, that's a
right.
lot of, help that
Absolutely.
you render to the families,
Absolutely.
to the caregivers, people that have probably stopped existing because they are taking care of somebody that is ill. People have resigned from their works just because they have a child battling
Exactly.
with a childhood cancer.
I actually know one who had to leave work because the child also had cancer as well, and all of that. And how tough is it? And are there, I mean, this is Nigeria, are there support communities for caregivers in Nigeria?
Okay, so the good thing is that a number of support groups are springing up here and there, especially in cosmopolitan cities like Abuja. You have people that are in direct communication with, NGOs and other philanthropies that are willing to help. So, but if you don't get to a facility where a health worker can help you connect with some of these support groups, leaving the battle, fighting it alone might be a whole lot.
Exactly.
It might be overwhelming for the caregiver. The drugs are not cheap. The hospital stay is something that if you're doing 5 to 6 cycles of comp therapy, for instance, for bucket lymphoma, it means that the child comes in to the hospital every 2 weeks or every month, depending on which regimen that is being used. So that period of hospital stay, there are things that will be used. The admission will be paid for and all that. These are things that are, capital intensive.
Right.
So, but with the groups, that are in place, that will take a whole lot of the burden away from the caregivers, so that together will actually help these kids
Absolutely.
have a better survival.
Well, Doc, I'm taking this conversation to where you don't like to go to, which is government intervention. What government intervention do we need, and what is available? I know you don't like to discuss government at all, but
Okay,
what
so-
looking at it, what do we need
So
immediately?
there are very key roles government should play for policymakers, those that implement and that enact the laws and all that. If there are laws that children with in places like Abia State, for instance, the government recently passed a bill that gives free healthcare to retired
Senior citizens and all
senior
that, right?
citizens and all that. So this is something that can be done for children with cancer. You can just say, okay, let's put a policy that every child that is diagnosed with childhood cancer in our environment will get free treatment. That will
Right.
take
The
the burden
burden,
off
right.
the parents. Then by the time they present and get treated, it also helps to reduce the, to increase the survival rate, as well as reducing the burden on the parents.
Right. And for those in underserved communities, sometimes the awareness is the problem. Yesterday, this period is a good time to once again have that conversation. But what sustaining method do you think we need to adopt just so that we are hammering it? Your child is ill, go get your child tested. It may be malaria, it may not, but in Nigeria, everything is malaria.
Okay, so the thing now is that's why this awareness campaign, it might not actually get to the people within the rural communities that may not have access to, cable
Digital
network
platforms and all that, yeah.
However, I believe there are people from those communities that will be going home from time to time.
Absolutely.
That want to go home very soon to cast their votes and all that. So by the time our viewers go back to their community, they've heard all the things that we discussed. When they go back to the communities and now see children that have been ill for months, that have been treating for malaria, treating for typhoid and all that, and are not getting better, they can actually be in a position to advise the parents, okay, so let me help you, go to so and so place so that you get your child checked. Some days ago, I got a call from a friend that his somebody that helps him take care of the house, had a child that has been ill, and the woman on her own has been going to some hospitals, and what they were saying didn't really make sense. So the man called me and asked me what exactly, how we can help.
Right.
So I advised that they should take the child to the nearest federal medical center, which they did, and they were able to run a series of tests and found out what the child's problem was. And you can be it's surprising that not necessarily that the child got any medication. The child had an infection that was poorly treated that affected the kidney. So there was what called acute kidney injury as a result. So by the time the infection was treated, the child was well hydrated. He started making urine and, was discharged
getting better again.
So supposing they didn't go to the right place, that's how you hear that somebody's child just suddenly passed on.
For something that
is largely
treatable. So that's very unfortunate.
So the same thing applies to childhood cancers. I've mentioned that bucket lymphoma.
Yes.
One of the commonest causes of childhood cancers in the sub-region that presents commonly as a jaw tumor. Now, if there is a treatment that once a child gets it, the whole tumor shrinks, and a parent doesn't know about it and goes to meet local bone massagers and all, the more they massage the tumor and dislodge it, the more aggressive it gets and all that. So, but with proper awareness, even indirectly, those that are hearing can educate those that are not reachable by this program. So by the time they are educated properly and the appropriate measures taken, everybody.
I know Abuja clinics had a demonstration, a walk. What else was did you have planned out for the build-up of the event?
We are here. So we are doing the awareness. So we will also continue the campaign to other platforms so that as much as possible, with the heightened awareness, people will get to know and act better.
So when you hear people tell you and swear with everything they own that they checked, they used herbs and herbs worked and all that, you and I know, I am very skeptical. I know the efficacy of herbs. I know that, it's not to be completely taken aside, but because you're never sure of the dosage, you're never sure of the clinical trials that have been done, you don't even know. What do you tell people when they say, oh no, I don't want the orthodox treatment, okay. I want to go traditional?
Okay, so I would not want to completely dismiss the usefulness of herbs.
Absolutely.
Because some of the drugs we use, like the anti-malaria, the quinine, was extracted from, or is an extract from the bark of cinchona tree. So other medications as antibiotics like penicillin was just something that was accidentally found to grow, within a culture medium, was extracted and, has been used several, for several decades to, treat bacterial infection. But the thing is, where one says that a particular herb treats everything, it treats hypertension, it treats diabetes, it treats cancer and everything. It becomes a bit worrisome because everything has scientific basis. If the extract from cinchona tree, quinine, can treat malaria and is demonstrable and is reproducible, irrespective of wherever you're practicing, that one is established. But in a situation whereby, okay, you are claiming that this thing works, and you don't want it to be put through the
clinical trials.
Let's even run a test and see whether it really works or not. So it becomes an issue. So that's another conversation for another day. But
Exactly.
it's best we do what we know, and we've tested and proven that it works. At least we have evidence-based, medical practices all over, the globe to show whether this particular thing works or not. And let's just stay on that. Then if there's any other thing, whether from celestial
I can't help but recently it's almost like a campaign. If you go on social media, for some of us who do a lot of health-related reports, so our algorithm brings in these things a lot. There's this conspiracy theory that pharmaceuticals have the cure for cancer, and they're holding it because, if you cure something, you won't be reproducing the drugs for management and all of that. When you also hear that, since we are here, discussing the myths around it.
The thing is, before we jump into any bandwagon, we should just try and get the background of whoever that is pushing.
Do you have the cure for cancer, Dr. Wala?
So there are cancers, like I mentioned, bucket lymphoma. There's what we call COMP therapy. The COMP is an acronym, COMP.
Right.
So the different medications that when you use in combination will shrink the tumor. That one has been proven.
Right.
Over time.
And nobody is gatekeeping on it. It's out there,
It's out there. But the thing is, before a drug, even if a big pharma comes up with a supposed cure for a particular cancer, it has to pass through clinical trials. There is phase 0, there is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, before it enters the market for people, before it gets FDA approval and enters the market for people to start using. Now, there is no way you come up with a drug and force it down practitioners' truth. It's not possible.
It must be proven to
work. It must be proven. And before you even use it in humans, you would have used it, with animals, guinea pigs, rats, and all that. So by the time you do, you can actually check for safety, check for efficacy, and all that. Before you now use it for a little, maybe few volunteers, by the time you use it for a few volunteers and you find it to be, safe, then you now move on to maybe using it for 100 to 200 people and ensure that it's efficacious for the particular condition you want to treat. Let's say somebody has cancer now and volunteers to go through the trial. The person is enrolled, and as the person is enrolled, you also monitor them to be sure that it actually does what it does, what it claims to do. When you read the news, there was one study
in Guinea-Bissau.
US wanted to do in Guinea-Bissau, where C-speakers will be exempted from the receiving study, vaccine, another group. So before you're even allowed to do some studies in humans, it has to be, there's what we call ethical clearance from the hospital, research and ethics committee. Now, if the health research ethics committee of the hospital sees that this work can be injurious to the subject, they will not approve it.
Exactly.
Now, a less than 6-week-old not getting a particular vaccine could mean that that vaccine preventable disease can, affect the child and kill the child. Or even if it doesn't kill the child, it can leave deformity in the child that the child will live all through his or her life with. So you will not see such a trial and say, okay, this group receive, this group don't receive, and you approve it. It's not done. So that was why this thing was flagged.
Right.
So the same thing applies to cancer treatments. You don't just bring a drug and somebody tries to run it through the eyes of ethics and sees that it can be potentially injurious to the recipients and give you the go-ahead. It won't happen.
Well, according to statistics about Nigerian children, about 40,000 Nigerian children are suffering childhood cancer as we speak. Is that a number enough for us to have a national intervention or national childhood cancer control plan and all that?
Okay, so some states, I remember while I was still in medical school in Calabar, there was a cancer registry, managed by the pathology department in UCTH then. So people that sent samples for histology that were confirmed to be cancerous were enrolled, So I know there are states that have such,
right.
But there are others that don't. So if there could be a kind of national collaboration with those centers that already have established registry in place, that will go a long way and actually have something that, will also help people access treatment easily. There are drugs you may want to use in a particular location that may not be available there, but you can find in another, for instance now, there are drugs you might want in Abuja to use for a particular patient, which can only be gotten from Lagos. Now, if there's no platform that shares information between these two,
cities,
settings now, these states or cities, you might find that somebody will be here looking for a drug that is available in another location, but
because of the synergy and communication and even data,
you may not be able to know that there are such medications and now access it by way of phone conversation. You can just call the facility and say, please do you have this? Can you send it? And all that, which most times, people that have the information do. So,
wow. So much has been literally dissected, pun intended. Speaking about childhood cancer, the better survivor is achievable through their hands. I like that. I like this year's theme. Dr. Nwala, a lot of people are listening to you right now and are wondering, I have children, I've been caring for children. What's your words of encouragement for those caregivers especially?
Okay, so I want to commend them. It's not easy.
Absolutely.
These, we call them warriors.
Warriors,
it's something that, one needs both psychological, physical, and financial warfare to fight. So I want to commend you, people out there that are, fighting, childhood cancers, their caregivers, their relatives, their communities. We are on this together. So always reach out if there are ways we can help ensure that they are supported. In even words of encouragement can go a long way. You can't see a teacher in school, not seeing a child being absent for a number of days. You can put a call through to the parents and encourage them. That will actually go a long way to give them the necessary strength to keep pushing. And can always reach out to those that have the network that will help advise you on how to go about getting quality treatment for your kid or your loved ones or relatives that are battling with this problem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Nwala Gabriel, consultant and pediatrician, Abuja Clinics, Maitama. Thank you for being part of the program and well done for the work that you do in creating awareness, especially around childhood cancer and other childhood diseases. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
This is where we end today's edition of Razep Africa. Remember, you can always follow us on our social media platforms to continue the conversation, but have a wonderful rest of the day. I am Dr. Joy Asoye.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.